Hey, it's Casey Okupi. This is Free Speech Northwest, and we're discussing the silent left. That can mean a variety of different things, and for me, it has to do with the fact that it's like personally, it's kind of hard to get some people on this show that aren't leaning to the right of center, like more conservative. They seem to be very willing to come on, but we have had some people to the left of center, and I wanted to thank them actually for coming on the show. I wanted to thank Gregory McKelvey for when he came on the show. That was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. And I wanted to thank Ashley Couch when she came on the show. Thank you. And in addition to that aspect where we have, trouble getting people a little left of center on the show, there are also a lot of things that seem to happen, like violence that's not coming from the right necessarily, and I don't hear a lot of people shouting it down, and that's one thing I'd like to talk about. But before we get into all of that stuff, let's all introduce ourselves from my left to right. So we'll get your name and then maybe find out a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here. My name is Jonathan Lockwood. I am a political operative. I've worked on campaigns, congressional campaigns, started out on those, working in music publicity before that, and worked my way up in Colorado. I've been a spokesperson now between here and Colorado for about 50 or so lawmakers and candidates. And I came to Oregon actually because I was looking for a tough fight with the Democrats. And actually what I really experienced here, unfortunately, was getting tackled by your own teammates with Republicans and the infighting that happens here. And it's no shock why we're in the minority. But I do think that there's hope. I think that Kate Brown can totally be defeated. And I actually think that, it's going to be an interesting election coming up.
Well, that sounds like fun. And I support what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's
No
just
problem.
like last week, we had these abortion ice cream parties that thrown by NARAL and What's the Scoop? And, I got a lot of Republicans telling me to shut up about it. And it's like, this is really sick. And if people don't know that this is how extreme the pro-choice people have gotten in Oregon, like I used to consider myself pro-choice, and now I'm questioning whether I really should even call myself that, even, because all these different exceptions that I think most Republicans have kind of gotten on board with. But, why would Republicans be trying to shut that down?
We should talk about that. We should talk about some of that infighting and stuff. I think I know what you're talking about. Like, we should really probably focus on what we have in common and try to,
Yeah.
support the goals that we have in common. Now, go ahead.
My name is Michael Cross, and I've also been in a lot of political campaigns and things like that, recalls, initiative petitions. I've run them in multiple states, and recently I started a newspaper, so it's Turner Times. So we are online and in print.
Okay.
And I'm glad to be here today.
I appreciate it. And
I'm Robert Zerfing. I'm the founder of the Common Sense Conservative and the founder of CSC Media Group. And essentially what I do is, originally I started off on Facebook just making memes, trying to throw conservative values out there. And then as Black Lives Matter and those guys started coming through, I noticed that the media was lying a lot about things that happened and so on. So I decided that I was going to start taking to the streets with a camera and start filming the leftist violence and Antifa, Black Lives Matter, essentially the assaults, the rioting, so on, and bringing truth to the actual, what was happening in the world, kind of filling in the blanks that the media kept on leaving out.
okay, so you're not a fan of the lies.
No.
Not a
Nope.
big fan?
Not a big fan.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Now we know who everybody is. So that's good. Now, you said that there were, I shared what you wrote about when it came to the ice cream parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, that's weird. Like, I don't see what there is necessarily to celebrate with ice cream when it comes to, or like the metaphor there, scooping babies out and
Well-
let's have a party. I don't.
It's just, to me, you know, when you look at what Kate Brown has done and what she, you know, has hung her hat on is abortion. She was an abortion lobbyist before she was governor, and she has made that like her you know, main issue, I think, in this election cycle. And unfortunately for her, she's running against a pro-choice doctor. So that's not going to really work out for her. And the other thing is, too, is Grayson Dempsey is the head of NARAL in Oregon, and she basically said that if you think these abortion ice cream parties are disgusting, which most people I've talked to in real life, not just, you know, chitter chatter on social media, but Democrats who are really concerned with that direction of their party, she said that I was a terrorist for pointing all of this out and terrorizing women and shaming businesses. And it's like, so me pointing out that this is happening is terrorizing businesses and women, but she has no problem with Antifa beating the hell out of a Bernie Sanders voter who was carrying an American flag. So, I mean, we just have all these crazy things going on. And I mean, my poor parents in Denver, you know, they called me and they were like, "Are you okay out there?" Like, I mean, it's just, and it's like, people just see all over the country that we're really the epicenter of, I think, the new left. And, you know, Kate Brown's tried to make herself the queen of the resistance. And, you know, she kind of has an outsized profile for being such a unpopular failure here. Even with her own party bleeding out, about 25% of her own party doesn't know if they'll vote for her. So, wow. I mean, you know, the first big paper that, or outlet that wrote about the NARAL ice cream parties was the Daily Wire. And it just spread like wildfire. And it's just, you see literally everyone else talking about it except Oregon media. And it's because, I mean, they're getting smaller, you know, but it's just, you have to wonder how much they're working in tandem with the Kate Brown campaign.
That's definitely a good question. Yeah.
Why did not a single, no one wrote about it? Like, you would think that even like the Willamette Week or something would say, "Oh, look at the Republicans freaking out about a fundraiser," you know, whatever. And they didn't even help reframe it because it's just like so disgusting that nobody wants to talk about it.
Did you work on the, are you working on Newt Bueller's campaign, or?
I was. We parted ways. But I'm excited about his candidacy, and I was working with Wooldridge during the primary. Wooldridge, I thought, was just a great candidate. You know, Navy captain, and his record and his positions were more in line with, I think, my views and the majority of the party's views on some of the social issues.
I mean, are you going to, I mean, do you feel comfortable saying that Wooldridge was in there to suck votes from Carpenter? I mean, his whole candidacy was a farce?
I mean, there's like this conspiracy theory that...
No, it's true.
It's not true.
You had two contributions of at least $50,000 each. It came from sham corporations out of Nevada. I mean, and they still don't know. I filed a complaint with the Secretary of State. They still don't know who was behind those contributions. I mean, you know, in today's age of transparency, do you think that's appropriate?
Well, the donations are all listed on the Secretary of State's website.
Because you worked for his campaign, and then, well, you originally started with Newt Bueller, and then you quit and went to work for Wooldridge. I mean...
Well, all I can say is I'm glad that Sam Carpenter is not the nominee, because he would not be performing the way that Newt is.
Well, I think Newt is a Democrat with the letter R after his name.
Okay, well then the question that I have for you would be, there's Newt and then there's Kate, and so we don't, like, if you, let's say for example you didn't want Kate to win as governor, hypothetically, you'd vote for Newt, right? No.
Well, let me explain something. So I mean, I've been involved in politics in the state since the mid-90s, and I liken what's going on now with Kate Brown as and the dissension that she's creating in the electorate as a rubber band tensioning. I mean, she's ticked off a lot of people, And so the more time that progresses and the more stuff that she does, this rubber band continues tightening and tightening and tightening, which is good for the right and bad for the left.
Yeah.
So you have this energy and this momentum, which is carrying forward the longer that she's in office. And so I think that if it is prematurely interrupted by somebody getting in there by the likes of Newt Buehler, then you've then wasted all of that activist energy, which was headed in a good direction towards conservatism in Oregon, on a candidate that is clearly, by his own admission, not conservative. So when he becomes elected, I believe long term it's actually worse for Oregon than if Kate Brown is allowed to continue another 3 or 4 years, because if she does get reelected, then you're going to have so much more momentum, and the right is going to mobilize so much more strength and energy and money to fight that then the next candidate, like I said, it's that energy. So then Sam Carpenter can get elected, something like that, if he were to run again. He said he wouldn't run again.
Let's not reform PERS for 4 more years.
Whoever it is. I think that Newt
and
Buehler,
continue bankrupting schools and allowing foster care kids to be
he's a Democrat
abused
with
in
the letter
hotels.
R after his name.
But even
there
if he
is a
was-
reason. I'm a precinct committee person. There is a reason why we have a platform in the GOP, and it is a set of beliefs, and this is
4
how
more
we're going
years
to
of Kate
conduct
Brown doesn't
ourselves and
sound like a
operate.
Republican
And
platform.
if a candidate goes off the reservation and deviates from that GOP platform, then he's at his own peril. Don't penalize the voters that feel uncomfortable voting for a pro-choice candidate, because that is not part of the GOP platform.
But,
Yeah,
wouldn't even a moderate, even like a almost left of center moderate, still be a heck of a lot better than Kate Brown?
Because, like I said,
This is why
the
Sam Carpenter
energy
lost the
in the rubber
primary.
band, you've wasted that
I think
energy.
we're getting a lot.
We're no better
getting
off.
Very loud right now. So for the mics, we gotta, But my concern, I think we're getting a little off of track of the episode that we're doing right now, which is the silent left. And then we're gonna do one about Kate Brown. So when we're talking about the silent left, for example, and I do want to talk about Kate Brown. I do want to go into it.
I'll go ahead and say that I think that it's the establishment in Oregon, the GOP establishment, is playing with fire and trying to play God by putting Wooldridge in there to suck votes from Sam Carpenter, and they're thinking that they know best and this kind of crap. And I'm saying you're playing with fire, and you may not get what you want.
Okay. I hear that. I appreciate it. We're going to talk about that on the next episode. Right now, I want to talk about kind of what you were talking about. I kind of want to alter things a little bit. When we're talking about how a lot of the right is dividing and not working together, and like you were talking about pro-choice versus like, pro-life and things like that. And that's part of the GOP platform is pro-life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the thing is, we're gonna have differences in views on some things. Like, even if you consider yourself conservative, there might still be 1 or 2 issues that you don't follow the line on. So how would you define that? I mean, does that person automatically, definitively not get to consider themselves as conservative if like let's say you're conservative on all views except you think there should be more gun control or something like that? Is that no longer conservative at that point?
Everybody, certainly, individuality and all of that is wonderful, but I don't know of more than 1 or 2 things that Newt is conservative on. I mean, and the pro-life thing, that's a biggie right there.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
That leaves out a lot of voters which identify as Republicans.
Well, that's kind of scary because...
But you're talking about one-issue voters right there, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if he's conservative on every single thing except for maybe that one?
But
One-issue
Christians won't
voters
vote
is
for
what
him.
gave us Obama. Then,
That's not true.
Well,
Why
they
wouldn't
sure,
they?
who are they going to vote for?
Because they don't want.
Not everyone believes.
Christians are not going to
necessarily
look at their
rubber
ballot and
band
say, I
theory.
want 4 more years of free, unlimited abortions
Well, like I said,
and
I mean,
foster kids getting literally
I don't know if you're
hotel.
sticking around in Oregon.
Do you know about
I don't know if you're gonna.
I'm not. I'm moving to Dallas.
You're out of here. You've done the damage and you're leaving. Well, I live here. I've been here a long time. I'm
and
proud
you
of
want
Oregon.
the governor to be governor for
And
another 4
like I
years.
said, it's
I
a
mean,
mistake
that's just not.
to put Newt Buehler in there, and it's kind of a joke.
when was the last time Oregon had an R next to the governor name? Back in the 80s, right?
About 30 years.
Yeah, it's been back in the 80s. So even like I was saying, even if he's a moderate or even if he's a conservative, except for one issue, he's going to be a heck of a lot better than Kate Brown, or even Kitzhoffer, or
did
even
my analogy
Kulongoski.
about the rubber band tensioning not make sense? I mean,
I think it's a
don't-
theory. It's a theory, and I think that
Anything.
Why can't we have a Republican and then another Republican and then another Republican and then another Republican? You know, why is it that if Newt got in, we couldn't find somebody better and then vote for them next?
I think
term
that if Newt
after
gets
that?
in, it's going to disenfranchise and a lot of conservatives are going to lose the momentum and energy that Trump has, started in the nation.
Maybe there can be more faith in the conservatives then.
Trump's
'cause
not a conservative, though. So I mean,
Trump is
no,
conservative.
he's a populist.
Well, I also think that winning an election would create more excitement
Creates
for the
momentum.
Republican Party, just like Dennis Richardson's monumental win has created a lot of the energy that we've been building up to this next election cycle. And I also think that if you look at issues that are happening in the state, we're one of the worst states in the nation for mental health. We're one of the worst states for veteran suicide. We're one of the worst for education. We're one of the worst for our foster care system. The Department of Human Services might as well be named the Department of Human Trafficking. There are children being hoteled at night with monitors. That all of that will change with Newt Bueller. That won't change with Kate Brown. And I don't think that we should have kids getting killed and starved and abused in hotels for the next 4 years to create some rubber band theoretical tension. And it's just not, it doesn't make any sense. And that's why Sam Carpenter lost in the primary to Newt Bueller.
And I supported Sam Carpenter.
I
Personally,
supported
I
Sam
did too. But
that doesn't mean I'm going to
Well,
support
what I
Kate
disagree
for
with
rubber
is our
band
party,
theory.
of which
I'm not
I'm a
voting for
member,
Hillary.
trying to play
I
God
disagree with
and
kids
installing Wooldridge
getting
in
killed
there
and
as
kids
a spoiler.
starving and kids failing schools
You guys
and veterans
honestly
not
didn't
getting
think Wooldridge
care.
was going to win.
What?
You guys honestly don't think that Wooldridge was going to win. His sole purpose in entering in that race was to suck votes from Carpenter, which he did.
But see, this is like right here. We're not talking about Antifa and Ted Wheeler and
Let's
the
switch
fact
subjects.
that
You're right.
a Bernie Sanders voter had his head gushing blood into the street because
I was
the
up in
left is
Portland
so
2
out of
weeks ago.
control.
I was at the last rally. I mean,
Okay, what happened at the last rally?
well, I think that I was, first of all, I want to give kudos to the Portland Police Department. They did an excellent job last time in protecting, people that weren't there to cause violence and preserving the peace. So I do want to give a thank you to those folks. But I mean, there was just, they had weapons, they had all this stuff, and
You're referring to Antifa, right?
correct. And they,
White supremacists.
Did
They're
Patriot
all
Prayer
white.
have any?
Antifa's all white,
That's
and they called the police race traitors and N-words and.
nope.
who did
Alright.
Antifa?
Antifa.
Yeah, Antifa, an all white, just like with Candace Owens. So Candace Owens, is surrounded by this horrific looking group of white supremacists, Antifa people, and she's getting called a white supremacist. And then that's happening here. And Chief Outlaw, I can't imagine, she must have to take a ton of Ambien to get to bed at night. I mean, I don't, she deserves, Republicans should go send her gifts or something because she has to
That's
deal
not
with
a bad
Ted
idea.
Wheeler every day. I mean, and he is
Yeah.
just basically,
well,
throwing
shouldn't
hurdles in front of her.
everyone on all sides kind of call out Ted for not protecting all the citizens of Oregon at the same time? From
The
what
last event, though, if that's any gauge, he's changed his approach.
That's
Well, yeah.
I'm
That's the
talking
thing
about the ICE
Portland.
people.
But that was before the last event. I don't think he's doing that anymore.
No, but see-
there was a lot of pressure on him to change that policy.
I've been covering leftist violence in Portland since long before Trump, long before Antifa. Antifa used to be a May Day thing. They'd show up on May Day, they'd go break a couple windows, and they'd disappear all year long until May Day again. That was it. And then Black Lives Matter showed up, and then Antifa started kind of coming out of the shadows, and then Trump was elected. Now Antifa's everywhere. But the thing about Portland in general is that, during the riots, I got to the point where I could go, okay, the cops are going to do this. The cops are going to do this. They're going to send people this way. Now everybody's going to get arrested. It got really to the point where you could tell exactly what was going to happen, how the police were going to operate. After 5 or 6 cops got hurt, then they would start acting. But see, Ted Wheeler has done a very good job of, we're going to do this, we're going to be rough until all of my voters, everybody who voted for me gets mad and starts crying. then we're going to stop. Because there were times where patriots would be going down the waterfront and they put one cop out there. One cop. Big old fight. No more cops showed up. Just that one cop stayed, took pictures of people who caused trouble, and then nothing happened. And then the next time there'd be a whole bunch of cops. And then they'd make a line. And then the next time, no cops. And then it got to the point where the police were like, it's mutual combat, so we're not really going to do anything. That's how they tried to do June 30th, because they said it was mutual combat. That's why the police didn't do anything. They didn't escort anybody. They just sat there and said mutual combat. Well, all of a sudden it got national attention. So now because the entire country looked at Portland and go, you're just like Berkeley, you stood down. Now Ted Wheeler decided we gotta be tough. We actually have to enforce the law. We can't do this whole heckler's veto and stuff. So what's going to happen next time? Is it going to be the exact same deal? No, because there were some riot control agents. So no, we can't do that. We can't do the same thing. We can't be mean to Antifa because somebody got hurt because some of the cops were actually aiming the projectiles at the actual people. So I mean, it's not going to be
Sounds
any
like a cluster.
consistency. It's a cluster.
Well, the left wants a race war.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's
I mean,
That's interesting. Can you-
I don't. It's not something that I would like to see, but I don't see things getting better before they get worse. I mean, they're not backing off. I mean, probably by the time people watch this, they will have already indicted, Donald Trump's son. I mean, and I mean, it's terrible. I think that we're going to have a second
Civil War.
civil war.
Can you elaborate on why you feel that way and define that a little further?
Yeah, I think that what they're doing is stoking racial division and making it look as though Republicans are the racists when it's very clear that Antifa is filled with a bunch of white supremacists. And it comes out that like a lot of these alt-right leaders are like self-professed progressives. And so, it's like you have to wonder who's all funding it, and we know who's funding it. And you have to know, like, that they're doing what they've always done. They're saying that Republicans have the positions that they do on a lot of these sort of
Well, let's take a look.
societal issues.
Let's look at what the Republicans' view then would be on this issue. For example, like majorities, minorities, like race and everything. I'm pretty sure when it comes to the conservatives, they're for Americans. You know what I mean? Like, if you're an American, why are we looking at
All
like,
the
color?
evidence-
It's kind of irrelevant.
All the evidence
would
you
you-
need.
Would
Yeah.
you agree with that?
No, I agree.
And all the evidence you need that the Democrats are still the racist party is you look at illegal immigration. What do you always hear from them? They always say, well, who's going to clean your hotel room? Who's going
Yeah,
to pick your
Kate
peaches?
Brown said
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Kate Brown at the Capitol said immigrants are the people who clip our lawns and pick our grapes. And Elizabeth Steiner Hayward, a state senator for Portland, when I asked her why she was screaming at me on the Senate floor, she cussed. And the workplace culture is so horrific at the Capitol.
Wow.
It's like if DC is a swamp, that place is like maybe like a gutter.
What about Oregon?
And, yeah, the Salem State House. And I mean, Kate Brown's been an architect of that workplace. And, Steiner Hayward was shouting and smacking her hand against the wall, and she was like losing it. She was mad that we were really amplifying what they were doing with the Abortion Free for All bill. And, it covered illegal aliens, free abortions. And I asked her why that was included, and she said because they came here to work. So you're absolutely right. They do have a very low view of people. I mean, the immigrants I know became, business owners, doctors, lawyers, broadcasters. Like this is not, and not that any job is bad, but it's just, there's a lot more aspirations out there.
Jonathan, they're typically more upset, the people that got in here, immigrated legally,
Right.
than the aliens. I mean, they're
Oh, yeah.
more because
Yeah, seen that.
they jumped through the hoops to be legal.
Yeah, my best friend growing up, we met each other playing outside as like third graders, I think. And her family's Ukrainian, and she was unable to, make it so that her grandparents could come. Like it was too difficult. So it's all this expense, and if you want to go live in Australia, it is so impossible to just pick up and be like, I'm going to become an Australian citizen But yeah, I just think that they are the ones that have these problematic views, and I do think you know, all these like dash American things. I tend to think like it's not a bad thing to have conversations about identities and backgrounds and perspectives, but when you have people waving a different country's flag, telling us to shut up.
Yeah, that's.
No, I mean, I was at this like music festival with a friend, and she's kind of Republican. She votes Republican. She's not very passionate about it, and she doesn't work in politics. But she worked in oil and gas and all this stuff. We were at a music festival, and this girl was just complaining about America, and I've never heard my friend say what she did to this other person. She was like, well, I can help you pack your bags, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she just said that. But it was so funny because she's just like, she's traveled all over the world. She's just like, you need to like go pack a suitcase and hustle on. So I just think identities are fine, but when your most important identity should be an American.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all agree on that, and that's not racist, okay? It just isn't. In addition to that, that's we're talking about race and things along those lines. I also don't think that the Conservative Party really looks to violence as an answer to stop listening to what somebody has to say. For the most part, I mean, I don't know if you'd all agree with that, but it shouldn't be. And so, I don't know if that ever happens. I would like to denounce that concept because I know we know Antifa. We know that one of the mottos of like a sub Antifa group is like by any means necessary, BAM or whatever with Falarka, but
a middle school teacher, right?
Huh? Yeah,
she's a teacher.
She's a school teacher.
I think they resort to violence because they have no more tricks up their sleeve. They have no
that's
logical
totally.
argument to make, so violence is
I
the
agree.
last alternative.
So when it comes to this other group, because there's like the Portland Antifa groups and Eugene and things like that, but then there's also in the Northwest there's groups like
Cells,
Patriot.
not groups.
Oh, cells. Okay. So there are these cells, and in the Northwest we have like Patriot Prayer, and then there's like Proud Boys and these different groups, and they kind of butt heads. Now, are they focused on nonviolence, those groups? And I'm not saying they are or they aren't, but I'm starting to get a vibe from Patriot Prayer that, it was like no violence, and now it's like self-defense is cool, and then we're talking about like agreed upon like mutual combat. And so then we're starting to talk about like ex-soldiers or something along those lines having mutual combat with like 20-year-old couch surfer type people, and that starts to get an area that personally I don't really approve. Like I don't have any authority or power, but the point is I think we should all be focused on non-violence to express our messages. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, absolutely, I agree. But when I was at the last one in Portland, I mean, on our side, I mean, I was with the Patriots, and I mean, nobody on our side instigated violence. I mean, all the violence was coming on the other side, and I mean, we have a right to self-defense, absolutely.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I completely.
I
agree.
didn't see anybody going and wanting to, bust heads intentionally. Let me at them. But from the other side, from Antifa, they did throw bottles and throw things. A lot of times they'll throw bags of urine.
Sure.
I mean,
well, we're talking
all kinds
about
of
people
stuff.
just on the other side of their late teens, kind of emotional. So I'm not saying there's any excuses or anything, but I'm saying it gets into a line that I think we should take a really good hard look at. There's no excuse for anyone to instigate violence. It's like kind of shows a lack of intelligence and argument, And so we need to just be vigilant of that. That's what I'm trying to say. We need to self-defense. I respect that concept, but we also need to acknowledge that we are talking about people who are, they're all on
children.
Well, Sure, or the late side of
It
teens.
seemed like
or-
a lot of the Antifa people were old to me.
Were they?
It's a pretty even mix.
I mean, it looked like a group of, it's like, they have like
It's a
the,
pretty even mix.
Did you see
Gender-
the mugshot
They're all white,
picture?
but they're
Yeah,
pretty even
They
I
look
mean,
like a bunch of meth heads.
yeah, they do.
All right.
I mean, they look scary.
Well, we got to start wrapping up this episode, but I think this was a pretty fun conversation, and I appreciate you joining us here on Free Speech Northwest. Thank you.